Can you guys hear me? Am I tall enough? Okay. I just want to make sure I passed the height requirement to be up here. So I'm a little nervous. Scott and Carly heard the very first one of these I've ever done, 14 years ago. So, matter of fact, their daughter was little. Gracie was probably about this tall. Would not sit with anybody during junior church. She would not let them leave. Scott came down with Darius and Grace, and she was as shy as they can be. So I see that you blossom. One of my problems with speaking in front of people at churches is that I feel that you guys can see all of my sins hanging. Think about the old guy that had the watches hanging in his coat. That's how I feel up here. So, and my head's a little jumbled today, so I do apologize if I bounce everywhere. But for me to be up here, Jesus had to take that donkey ride. Knowing what he was going to do, what was going to happen to him. For me to be up here and all the sins that I committed and continuously, all of the bad things that happened to me, all the bad things that I've done, he had to take that donkey ride. He went there. People rejoiced for him to be there. The other half wanted to see him kick Rome out. Wanted to see him devastate the soldiers and everybody that had done him wrong and done them wrong. And he didn't. He came in and he said, this is what I'm going to do. This is what's going to happen to me. Half people didn't believe him. So, for you to be sitting there, for me to be up here, that had to happen. And this is just the beginning. Because come next Friday, or Friday, not next Friday, but come Friday, someone had to hold the hammer to nail him to the cross. Whether they believed them or they believed Jesus, they held the hammer. Someone had to hold the spear. Someone had to pay for those actions that they did, not knowing. So, this all started April 1st, 2011. It didn't start there, but that's the start of my Christianity started there. I was arrested about 10 o'clock in the morning. U.S. Marshals SWAT team to my house. And it is exactly like you see in the TV. They came, they blocked the street off. I lived on Main Street in Laceyville, telling people to go back in their homes, the whole 9 yards. I happened to be getting up to make myself a drink. I had a stolen handgun on the nightstand. We just moved into this house, so there wasn't any furniture at all. Our bed was in the living room. We had a TV. That was it. Like no kitchen plates, nothing. We were still eating paper plates. I heard a scuffle as I just made my drink. I was going back to the bed to watch TV. I was a bar manager. And I heard a noise on the porch, and there's a window with a blind, and I peeked down, and when I did, there's a man in flak vest, helmet, whole 9 yards, looking back at me. And I believe our eyes were about this big. Kind of caught each other off guard. They started hollering, I started hollering. Anyways, I came in the back door, came in the front door. I'm face down on my floor in my house. And they're not friendly. They're paid to not be friendly. I'm not their friend. They're come to issue warrants from the state of Indiana. And they didn't know about the state of Pennsylvania yet at that moment. So they bum rushed my house. There wasn't nothing in there. So they were really baffled. They took the stolen handgun I had, and they found a sawed-off shotgun that I'd had for 25 years. My father and I made it when I lived in Tennessee. And just let you know, in the state of Pennsylvania, 18 inches is the legal limit for a barrel on a shotgun. The whole gun was 13 inches. So they took me down to Tunkhannock and called my wife 4 times because it was April 1st. She thought it was an April Fool's joke. Yep. It was not. Up until about 5 years ago, I didn't leave the house on April 1st. I didn't want to go do nothing. I didn't want to be around nobody. I was afraid they were going to arrest me again for whatever reason. So she comes down, and I remember the troopers asked me, they said, "You want to talk to her?" I said, "Nope, sure don't. She's going to kill me." And she had no clue, nothing about it. So what happened, and I'll come back to that point. So what happened is it all started, I was about 5 or 6 years old. And my dad would play cards, and my brother and I would draw straws to sit on a bucket next to him to make his drink. Because that meant we got to eat the ice on the way into the kitchen and sip it on the way back out. From then off and on, harmless, let me sip your beer, Dad. We made wine, we made moonshine, we made homebrew. So all along, you'd help Dad siphon a jug out or whatever, and wasn't a big deal. Probably about 6th grade is when we started drinking the homemade wine or drinking the shine out of the lid. And then about 7th grade, I started drinking my mom's whiskey out of her decanters and replacing it with water. And then in freshman years, when I started drinking in school, taking it with me. In 6th grade is when I joined. My mom worked all the time. When she wasn't working, she was going out. So my father and mother divorced when I was about 5. So she would send me to my grandma's, and my grandma would take me to a Methodist church. I didn't want to be there. Didn't really participate. But they offered up that they wanted juniors in the choir. So I joined the choir only so I could, during the sermon, go to the bathroom and pillage all the purses that were being stored in the choir room. That's one of, so many wrong things that I've done. So, first time I ran into the law was 16 years old. I had been robbing trailers in Tennessee and stealing shotguns and sawing them off and selling them. They met with me, asked me, of course I denied it. A kid had bought one from me that went to Murray State University, shot a hole in the ceiling in the middle of a party. He said I made it. They couldn't prove it. They had an idea. It was a far stretch, because I wasn't a bad kid. I went to school for the most part. I was 17. I was pulled over. And the cop pulled me over, and I know he could smell me. And he told me that I was drinking and that he should take me to jail. And he asked me what I was doing, and I told him I was going into the Navy. And so he let me go. He said, "Go home." So I went to the Navy at 18, and the FBI had went to my mom's doorstep because of a house that I had robbed and took guns, but it was between me or their son who was strung out on drugs, and I was in the Navy. So they took the son. The Navy fine-honed my drinking. And we drank a lot. And we drank all the time. When I got out, it just progressively got worse. I got medically discharged, and my drinking became a way of life. And it took me a really long time after I was sober to realize that my general makeup is different than a lot of people. There's addicts everywhere, and whether it's drugs, porn, food, alcohol, whatever it is, that a general makeup is different. And I say that a good scenario, a good thing to think about is take your cell phone when you go home Put it down on your kitchen table and don't pick it up. Go 24 hours without picking it up. You're going to walk past, and I don't mean put it in a closet, put it in a drawer. I want you to put it on your counter, your kitchen table, somewhere where you walk by, and don't touch it. And in your mind, if you're struggling, there's a possibility for addiction. It's that simple. They say if you have more than 3 drinks, you're an alcoholic. I don't believe that. But I can tell you that by the time I got out of the Navy, I was drinking a half gallon a day. By myself. When I got arrested, I was a half gallon a day by myself at home, not counting the several drinks I had before I went to work, the several drinks during work, or the several drinks after work that I had. Probably a good gallon. So sometimes I made it to work, sometimes I didn't. Most of the time I paid my bills, most of the time I didn't. Through the years, I can tell you that my wife, we've been together 19 years. Our first date, I went to jail. And the cop told her, said, before you get in the car with somebody, he should know your phone number. Because I had to ask him to get the phone number. I'm on my 3rd wife. Alcohol played a part in all of those, I'm sure, at some point. My addiction played a part. My pride played a part. I knew who Christ was, but I didn't know him. I didn't have a solid foundation, as we talked about in Sunday school. I have a grandfather that my grandfather, my father, and my uncle all have died because of alcoholism. So we're going to move up here in 2010. I was notorious for my wife coming home from work, and I would have anywhere from 10 to 30 people. And we would be drinking and partying and the whole 9 yards. My daughter went to prom. I was supposed to drive her and paint her fingernails. I did paint her fingernails. It took me 2 hours because I was so drunk. She sat there, let me paint them, and then they fixed them after I passed out. I have woke up in the weirdest places. Taco Bell parking lot, I've passed out in front of. One place in particular, I just bought a Jeep, and I'm driving down the road, and I clip a mailbox. I pull over, what I think I pull over, and this is a very small German community. It'd be like something here. I get out, I check the mirror, I get back in. That's the last thing I remember till the church bells start going off at the church. I'm in the middle of the road. My vehicle's running. I'm passed out. Every person that went to that church had to drive around me to go to church that morning and left me there. Or maybe I did talk to them. I don't know. Either way, there I was. That was one of the strangest places. I woke up, couldn't find my vehicle, didn't know where it was. I've been in just some awful, awful places that I've woke up in or ended up in. So, we're going to move up here in 2010. We throw a party. I throw a party. She didn't know anything about it. At the bar. She was at work. People came all day long. It's a going away party. Well, at some point, I decided that I had to go to the gun shop. Went to the gun shop, asked him something. He went in the back, took 2 handguns. Walked out. I had a conversation with a fully dressed police officer on my way out the door. No big deal. I woke up the next morning and I had 2 stolen handguns in my possession. And went, I have no clue where these came from. Had absolutely no idea. So I did what every good crook does, is give one to my sister to hold on to, and I hid the other one and took it to Pennsylvania. And she came 2 months later. Didn't say a word about it. It's like, must have got away with it. Nobody said nothing. And that was in November, and we were supposed to go back to Indiana in December, and her friend wouldn't let us stay for some reason. It was really weird. Like we had plans to go out to dinner, all this stuff, and she didn't want us there. Now knowing that we had a mutual friend that was a cop's wife, and they already knew and said, does this look like Rafe? And they had video. There was 30 cameras in that gun shop. That's how drunk I was. So they take me down to Tunkhannock. I'm at the police barracks. They talk to my wife. She says, what do you want me to do? I'll stick with you as long as when you're done drinking. Okay. So this is who you need to call. I had 6 charges against me. There was 6 or 8, anywhere from stolen possession of firearms to transport across state lines, intent to sell. They had 4 federal charges for drug charges, which, as you can see, I don't do drugs. I've got a little much weight on me. But they were throwing everything at me that they could. So they take me to jail, and I'm in Pennsylvania jail waiting for extradition down to Indiana. And I'm there 4.5 months for a sawed-off shotgun that I had 25 years. And why I'm in there, and this is where we start seeing God's hand in this, where I started to see it. Not saying that, if I'd have been asleep, they would have come and knocked my doors down, that I would be standing here, because the first thing I'd have done was reach for a gun. My wife calls her mother down in Indiana on the Kentucky border, who calls my wife's aunt, her mom's sister, who's also down there, who calls her son, who is director of athletic in Cedarville, Ohio, who calls his best friend, who happens to be a pastor in Towanda. Mm-hmm. Yep. And he came down, and however they talked, he came down, and I get a visitor. And it's him. I was like, look, bud, I don't want to hear this. You're here because my wife wants you here. You're not going to shove this stuff down my throat. We're just not going to do this. He goes, I'm here just to listen. And he did. First 2 times he visited, we didn't say a word. Nothing. And then I was checking all these books out of the library, and I was like, well, this is dumb. I might as well just read one. So I got the Bible. I got this very Bible. It's called Free on the Inside, and it's designed for people who don't have a high school education. The funny part is it just kind of appeared. I was in a cell block of 30 guys. There was 10 cells, 3 guys to a cell. Not one of those other 29 knew where this came from. I asked the guards, no one knew where it came from. When you leave a cell block, take all your belongings with you and you go. So I don't know where it came from. I tried to find other ones for other gentlemen when I was in there. Not happening. So that was the first one. Clinton Cumming, the pastor, I started writing down questions. And to tell you how trivial they are is the questions that I wrote down was, what do you mean he wasn't born in a barn? What do you mean Christmas didn't happen in one day? Let me tell you, that train wrecked my life. It was a 2-year span. So I started having these questions. And the more questions I had, he was there to answer. The more questions I had, the more I read. And I remember working out one night, and it was in June. I can't tell you what exact day it was, but I can remember being on the floor and God reaching out to me. I said, you know what, you've done this for 35 years on your own. You've screwed this up every step of the way. Now I'm taking over. And my wife says that the next time she saw me that I was different. And I remember telling her it would be okay. And so we went through a lot of that, and I got 3 letters. I got a lot of letters in jail, but 3 of them stuck out. The first one was to a friend of mine who performed our wedding, and told me the reason why he does not ever want to see me again or hang out with me is because my drinking got so out of control. The second one was from a pastor who was 90 at the time, probably, telling me that I am forgiven, that God has forgiven me. I still have to serve my time, but that God has forgiven me. Whatever God lays on the table is what I have to do. Okay? And the third one was a friend of mine who just subsequently was holding my legal guns. He was cleaning them to tell me that he was going to hold on to them until I could have them back. Okay? Funny part is that the letter came from a gun shop. So the irony of that was a little bit. So now they're going to extradite. I spend my time there. My wife's been talking to the sheriff down in Indiana, and they're going to extradite me. And I don't know if you guys know what extradition is. It's not quite like Con Air, if you've ever seen that movie, but they do have planes that they ship people. I was not that lucky. I was 29 hours in a van, shackled, sitting on a seat next to two other guys. All three of us could fit in a spot like this. And you're shackled on your waist to your feet. They let you out. We got out one time to go to the bathroom and to sleep for 3 hours on a floor in a jail in Ohio, in a prison in Ohio. They stopped twice to eat. They went into McDonald's. The two guys went in McDonald's, and they bring out, you eat what you get. If it's quarter pounder and you don't like the special sauce, guess what? You don't eat. If it's soda that you're drinking and you don't like to drink soda, tough luck, don't drink. It's real simple. And they don't let you out to eat. You're still shackled. So, those French fries that you get to dip with one hand and hold the ketchup, nope, not happening. By the time I got to Indiana, I was so tired of being in a vehicle. I stunk. Everybody else stunk that was with me. You're tired, you're grouchy. I go in, this is my home jail. A girl I had dated in high school was the one that fingerprinted me. All of the guards were guards. They started out as casino security guards. I knew them. So this is the other big thing that God did. I was there. They bailed me out of jail against what my better judgment was. I spent 15 minutes in a jail cell there for 2 stolen handguns. We go through the day. This was a Saturday when they bailed me out. I come back Monday because I want to talk to the sheriff that's been working with my wife to thank him for all his help, blah, blah, blah. I go in there and he says, the lady at the desk, I said, yeah, I'm here to speak to Sheriff such and such. She says, okay, what's your name? I said, Rafe Seiler. She says, huh? Yes, ma'am, Rafe Seiler. So she, okay, huh? So she calls him and she says, no, he's standing right here. Okay. She says, how'd you get here? My mom brought me. 35 years old, my mom's taking me to the sheriff's office. So she says, yeah, why don't you stand right there? I'm like, okay. Stand here. Visitors are over here sitting down. They got a hallway over here. She's behind bulletproof glass talking to me. And I can hear these keys rustling in my ear. And I'm like, that don't sound right. Like a janitor's ring of keys. All of a sudden, I turn around, and these 2 deputies and this sheriff are running full bore at me. And everybody starts going up in arms and screaming, and I'm like, ooh. They're like, what happened? I was like, I bailed out on Saturday. They didn't know because I bailed out Saturday night. This is first thing Monday morning. The paperwork hasn't went through the emails and all of that. So they almost took me back to jail. But it all got worked out. So I went to court, and as I'm sitting there in court, I'm sitting there with other people that I've been in jail with, criminals. And they're going through, are you married? Are you have kids? These guys, no, I'm not married. Yeah, I got kids. No, I didn't graduate high school. They get to me. He says, are you married? Yep. You got kids? Yep. You got a job? Mm-hmm. You got high school education? Yep. College? Yep. Been in the military? Yep. And he kind of looks over his paperwork and goes, you really are an idiot, aren't you? Yep. 100%. Because I did everything that society told me I should do, And I still ended up in jail because of my choices. Not because my parents were alcoholics, which my dad was. Wasn't because my mom didn't love me enough or wasn't there. She worked, she went out, she had men, and those are a lot of gory details that there's no bearing. There's no reason to share them. But I realized that what made me different at that point when he asked me is that I was saved. So that I had Jesus Christ in my heart, and I had God and all them to carry the package and carry the burden that I carry. And that they forgive my sins because he died on the cross in a week. He was raised so I could be an idiot. So, I spent 4.5 months in jail for a shotgun I'd had for 25 years. I spent 15 minutes in a jail for 2 stolen handguns. And the only person that can do that is God. I've been sober for 14 years as of April 1st. We are still picking up pieces 14 years later. The ramifications that come across from our children or that we see in our grandchildren, our families, is still here. I can't explain to you how hard it is every day I want to drink still to this day. I think, 1 wouldn't be a big deal. 2 wouldn't be a big deal, but it is. And my wife can tell you, she's always wanted to go, so now we're doing this? It's been liquor, it's been beer, it's been food, it's been energy drinks, it's been coffee, it's been iced coffee gave me diabetes. I never had it. After drinking an iced coffee, 2 iced coffees a day for 6 months, I had diabetes all of a sudden. I was through the roof. Couldn't understand. The doctor was like, you're diabetic. No, I'm not. Yeah, you are. And they showed me the numbers. I don't know why. So then we started doing it. So it's always something with me. That's the personality that I have. That's the addiction that I have. And like I said, I apologize. My head's a little jumbled today, and I'm sure I'm missing some key points. But I can't emphasize enough that it's Christ in my life that does it. I can't emphasize enough that if you are holding anything, you're not obeying God. Take it to him. Take it to the cross. That's why he died, is so he can hold our burdens. Because if it wasn't for him, this would not be happening. And there's no reason why you have to be broken. You don't have to be that broken Christian. You don't have to be the one that's beating yourself up, because that's the hardest thing, is forgiving yourself. And people may or may not forgive you. My wife told me a long time ago, she said, if they don't forgive you for what you've done, they're missing out on the best part of you. And every one of you have that in you. But one thing I want you guys to think about something. So, when you think of your identity, I hope everybody in here is a Christian. Well, at least some of you. Raise your hands. Your identity, think about what you identify as. And someone told me one time that they're identified as a Christian, as a believer. They don't want to be identified as a Baptist, a Catholic, Protestant. They want to be identified as a Christian. And I didn't quite understand that when I first heard it. So, I'm male, I'm white, I'm cook, foodie, redneck with a side of hillbilly. I'm a grandpa, a dad, and a husband. I've been a bartender, an equipment operator, a commercial fisherman, a roughneck, a farmer, and a sailor. I've been an alcoholic, a womanizer, an ex-con, a thief, a liar, a cheat, drunk, fighter, a horrible ex-husband, and a horrible husband. and a sinner. But today I stand as a Christian, child of God, a man of God, a believer, an infant in Christ, a praiser, a better husband, I hope. But I'm still a sinner, and I always will be. So when you guys think about that, think about what you identify as, and think about where you want to be identified as. But he, like I said, he died on the cross in 5 days so we could be here. So, just because I have changed and God has forgiven me doesn't mean that everyone will accept that. The flesh of others rely a lot on feelings and emotion. Just because God forgave me doesn't mean people have. And that's when we turn to God, because we can't change people, only how we react to them and what they say. I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. But I will tell you this, two different sayings over the years, or over the time I was in jail, came to me. And the first one was, I didn't get in trouble every time I drank, but every time I got in trouble, I'd been drinking. And the other one is, you get what you've always gotten. You get what you always got if you do what you've always done. Okay, so if you don't like something, change it. If you think you need to be closer to God, change it. Build that foundation. So I know you guys are going through a hard time here at this church. Unfortunately, we have been through it at 2 other churches ourselves. So we understand completely. I'm going to read this verse to you guys. Brian, is this mine?
Yes.
Oh, praise God. I was told I couldn't bring gum up here because she said I might spit it out, and she didn't want to listen to me chomp. So, Psalms 130 is the verse that I usually read, and to me it's a level playing field that every person in this room is equal. And it says, Lord, I cry out to you because I'm suffering so deeply. Lord, listen to me. Pay attention to my cry for your favor. Lord, suppose you kept record of sins. Lord, who then wouldn't be found guilty? But you forgive. So many people have respect for you. With all my heart, I wait for the Lord to help me. I put my hope in his word. I wait for the Lord to help me. I wait with more longing than those of guard duty wait for the morning. I'll say it again. I wait with more longing than those on guard duty wait for the morning. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, because the Lord's love never fails. He sets his people completely free. He himself will set Israel free from all of their sins. So he will forgive you. He forgives everyone. So let us pray. Lord, what a wonderful, wonderful day it is to know that you are on your way to die on the cross for us. I don't know that we could ever understand that, ever do the same. But we thank you for what you do for us. I ask that you reach in everybody's heart, settle their heart, souls, and mind, Lord, and just give them peace today, knowing that you're coming. Thank you for everything you are, and we love you. In Jesus' name, amen.